Having moved to Jamaica when I was 19 serving my mission, this island has always held a special place in my heart. Me love the place, man, as they would say in Jamaica. As Paul said in our previous episode, I might be more Jamaican than Idahoan. When Paul asked me to join him on his first trip to the island, I jumped at the chance to be his guide. If there is anything that I can appreciate more than Jamaican culture, it just might be the unbridled spirit of the entrepreneur. Today, we're going to feel that entrepreneurial spirit and learn about a husband and wife team whose business couldn't be more different than my own. Alexandra and Jack left successful careers in the tech industry to move back home to Jamaica and start a cannabis farm. I know what you might be thinking. Why would Paul and I fly to Jamaica to spend 2 days on a cannabis farm? Well, Paul was introduced to Alexandra through a mutual YPO connection and found her story fascinating and totally different than previous interviews with service industry entrepreneurs.
You two strike me as an atypical cannabis entrepreneur, right? Like, it's not what I think about when I meet the two of you. So before we delve a little bit deeper into Jacana, I want to talk a little bit about how you two got here.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Jamaica?
I did. I grew up in this parish, in the parish of St. Anne. Yeah, this is where I'm from. It's a joy to be able to come back home.
You grew up here in Jamaica. I know you spent some time in London, but I want to talk about that because you don't sound Jamaican.
Yeah.
You sound British,
Yeah.
as do you. So
Really?
When she gets angry with me, the patois flows. Trust me.
okay, well, maybe we're going to extract some of that in a little bit here.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Jamaica, and then what'd you do?
I know growing up that I was a very privileged Jamaican, and I was fortunate that, you know, my family gave me a lot of opportunity, and one of those opportunities was to go away to school and, you know, get an international experience. And I did that at a young age. I went to boarding school in England, and then I actually got recruited to play tennis and to join the Saddlebrook Tennis Academy, where Pete Sampras played, and part of my class was, you know, Andy Roddick and Marty Fish, and so I was training to be a professional tennis player. And I then, you know, had a great semi-professional tennis career. At the age of 20, when I finished my first degree, I actually moved to London to study law at the LSE. When I went to study law as a second degree, I actually did it, my entire thesis was about returning to Jamaica and what I could do to help my country. I knew that I was fortunate, I'd seen the world, and I knew how special Jamaica was. And I knew that, you know, it's an island of great magic and great opportunity. Coming out of, you know, independence in the 60s and then some turbulent political times, like, you know, I wanted to come back and be a politician.
Okay.
And actually, so my entire, like, you know, application thesis was, you know, what was I going to do? And obviously I'm a female, and I'm, you know, very much a feminist. I believe in female empowerment, and I thought, you know, I could help women in Jamaica, and I can get involved in family planning and really try to rebuild back the nuclear center of the family home, which was starting to break down in Jamaica. So that was really how I started. And then my father was like, no, you need to go work and make some money outside. And so I actually ended up becoming a tech entrepreneur.
Okay.
And I had a very successful tech business, which I sold in 2016.
What kind of tech business?
So I founded a company called Lulu.
Controversial one.
The hot new app Lulu is stirring up controversy. But founder Alexandra Chong denies Lulu pits women against men.
In my 20s, as a young single female in London, the rise and beginning of online dating, the beginning of Tinder, dating online went from being, oh, weird to, oh, normal, this is how you're supposed to do it. There was something missing for me. There was this reference tool that was missing, and I wanted to create almost a TripAdvisor for women meeting men online. And so we launched Lulu. And it was a big success, mainly in the United States, which was really our marketing kind of thesis. Young women, we were on the phones of about 1 in 4 college girls in the U.S., and it was a top 10 app. And yeah, it was a hell of a roller coaster, both, you know, controversial as well as loved, but definitely a topic. So
What do you mean TripAdvisor for dating for women?
So we would let women review men that they knew, either whether it was their brother, a friend, a guy they dated, and then they could upload those reviews on the app. And then other women who would meet a guy on Tinder could come and search for him.
What sort of reviews did Jack get?
Do you know?
Funny yours.
Do you know? So of course I looked him up on Lulu when we met, and
Wait, how did you meet?
the short story or the long story?
Embarrassingly,
Or the real
she
story.
doesn't even remember the actual first time we met, which was.
But you do,
It
of
was
course.
very brief. Of course I do. I
Yes.
mean, if
Yeah.
you see Alexandra, you like never forget her. But it was a tech event in the Caribbean.
Hawaii. Oh,
The first one was
yeah.
in Hawaii. 2 weeks later, we were in the Caribbean and instantly fell in love, right?
Yes.
And
You did.
we both did.
Okay.
No. Her side of the story was she walked into the room. I was there.
I think you should tell the
editing
proper
pictures.
version. You can tell the proper version. You can tell the Hawaii version, and then
We were at the same tech event, but in Hawaii 2 weeks
Yeah.
before. And
which was being hosted by actually one of our board members today.
yes,
Bill
exactly,
Ty, a
Bill
very
Ty.
legendary Silicon Valley investor.
So Alexandra had been invited to go to the event to talk about the fact that she had just finished this big capital raise for Lulu
We were being given an award, Startup of the Year.
and Startup of the Year. And I was there under my photographer's hat, photographing and filming the 3 top kite surfers
Okay.
who were part
Oh.
of the event.
Interesting.
And anyway, so I, with my sort of interest in business, went to the talks that happened in the morning. And I was in the crowd, about 200 people. And I went up to my friend who I knew her. And I was like, Susie, you are introducing me to this girl. As soon as she gets off stage,
Yep.
and she looks at me, she goes, Jack, every guy in this room wants to meet Alexandra. You're going to have to join the queue. The evening before, she had asked her team back in London to do a review of a guy that was at the event, and she chose me to do the review.
No, so I reviewed you, and then I said to them, can you make sure to take the review and mock it up, because I'm going to put it on stage. And
Yeah.
and we're gonna
So
I'm gonna
her
review it
team back in
live.
London did a fake review of me, right? Because they didn't know me. But after she asked them to do that, we then hooked up. Had a cheeky little kiss on the beach. Showed her the stars, said a few cheesy
Yeah,
comments.
easy now. I need the details.
And then in the morning, in front of a lot of my friends and family members, she did this fake review of me. And it was things like,
I'm true to my word, Paul.
it was
I'm
things
not holding
like,
back.
what was it, hashtag bad breath?
No, I
think?
know.
think
That's what your
one of the
uncle
things my
tells
uncle
everybody.
teases me about.
He
He's like,
tells
so are you
everybody.
doing teeth anymore these days?
He
'Cause-
tells everybody that was not a hashtag. It was hashtag mothers love him. So we didn't let girls write whatever they wanted in like the first iterations, because we didn't want it to be like a man bashing site. We wanted to use clever hashtags, and we hired comedy writers from LA. And so it was like, it was enough information, but done in a nice way. And then a guy could claim his profile anyway. Long story short, we don't have to go into it, but yeah, it was certainly an interesting product. It was the definition of virality. When people talk about something going viral,
Yep.
I fully experienced what that looks like. Yeah, there was it was an interesting time.
Yeah.
And I got to meet the love of my life in the process, and we started our journey together.
So you guys were dating in London.
Yeah.
At what point did you decide then that, so what sparked the idea for Jacana and, hey, let's go to Jamaica and do this? Alexandra, I know that you, of course, wanted to get back here, wanted to
Yeah.
be a part of Jamaican society, but, the two of you as a team, how'd that happen?
I sold my company in 2016. We started to travel with our daughter, and then we actually came across an investment opportunity in California for cannabis. A really charismatic young Venezuelan entrepreneur. And that kind of sparked my interest. I could see that the world was coming out of prohibition.
Yep.
More and more states in America were legalizing. The world, more and more countries were creating medical cannabis frameworks. We took a trip home, and we actually started to look for a company that we could invest in. We started to travel to places that were starting to really innovate in cannabis. So we went to Israel, where a lot of the science innovation is, where a lot of the cannabinoids, the medicinal compounds, have been identified. And we got to know a really incredible cannabis scientist named Dedi Mary at the Technion. spent a lot of time with him. Then we went to California and went to see all the legacy growers in California. And then we went to Canada and saw all of the money being thrown around and the cannabis, you know, public listings. And then we landed in Jamaica. And I think it became very clear that what was going to be important was a level of sophistication coming out of prohibition, right? You know, yes, you said, we're not the traditional ganja farmers, right? But we respect the traditional ganja farmers and we recognize that they paved the path before, right? This is a story about people and a plant persevering through prohibition. And that needs respect and honor, but also you need to have the right amount of capital and the right organization from a business perspective that I came from to really elevate Jamaican cannabis to be able to compete on a scalable level and a high quality level and a consistent level. For me, what was immediate was like, we have an opportunity to build the champagne of cannabis. In our search for the right location for Jacana, across this island with many microclimates, we wanted to find property and soil that was truly organic. Because being organic and being natural and sustainable is at the core of some of the values of Jacana. And that was really important for us to really identify a location. Because you know, if you know much about agriculture, if you add salt-based minerals to the soil, it takes at least 10 years before you're able to reverse that and get proper living organic soil back together. So that was really important for our outdoor cultivation, which we mainly do for extraction, which we'll get into today. But yeah, so that's where we are. We're in the middle of the island.
So when did Jacana actually begin to cultivate here?
We got our first plants in the ground sometime in 2018.
Okay.
I think we had our first 5 plants in 2017 when Jack's grandmother visited. And she documented the 5 plants, a real entrepreneur in herself, Eve Branson, really special lady. And that was in 2017. And then in 2018, we actually began cultivating and beginning the R&D production of Jacana. Jamaica is the spiritual home of ganja. You know, I grew up with it as a natural medicine. But this isn't a cottage kind of industry play here if we're going to make this happen. And I think when we looked across the businesses that were starting and the entrepreneurs, they were the traditional cannabis entrepreneur. And I just didn't feel that there was anyone to back. And so Jack looked at me and he said, you're going to start another company.
She's looking at you all starry-eyed. You look back at her and say, you're going to do this again now. Is that what you're going to do?
Yeah, not even 6 months from the last exit.
You know,
we've identified a problem.
Yeah. But firstly and foremost, you know, we just had our first child and she kept saying, I don't want to be pushing this pram for the next 20 years. So I just can't do it. I need to start something else, right? She is that serial entrepreneur. And so I knew, right, it won't be long until she finds a project. And when we found the cannabis journey, for me, it was just so wonderfully obvious, right? You tick 2 boxes for the 2 of us, right? One is this passion project that I know Alexandra has been looking for, right? A reason to come back to Jamaica, to do something impactful, really positive, you know, with actual change, you know, that can, you know, long lasting in Jamaica. And then for me, it was this no-brainer. It was, okay, so I'm a photographer, I'm a storyteller, and here I am presented with an opportunity to build a brand that will represent this incredible marriage between Jamaica and cannabis, right? The world knows about that relationship. And what a privilege to be put in a position to build that brand.
So your wife is saying, hey, this is a great opportunity in Jamaica. You're living in the UK. I would imagine you've never lived in a Caribbean island before, right? So, I mean, was there any hesitation? Did you say,
Of course there was hesitation.
So that's what I'm curious about. I mean, how long did it take you to, I mean, was it a day, was it a week, a month, 6 months? What was the decision-making process for you?
Oh, boy. Well, it wasn't easy, that's for sure. You know, my life back in England was perfect. I mean, I was a professional photographer for nearly 20 years, and I love what I did, and it was wonderful. And I've got great friends and family back home, which I really miss. That's the number one thing that's terrible about living abroad.
Yeah.
But will I ever regret coming here? I mean, I hope not. Certainly don't today.
Yeah.
But you also, Jack has spent a lot of time in the British Virgin Islands, right? And he's also spent a lot of time in Africa, you know, filming. And there's some similarities, right? He's been in the Caribbean. There's a lot of similarities on your travels for Africa. So
And England.
Everyone
and
asks me, how does Jack settle into Jamaica? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like naturally. Like he's out there picking mangoes from the garden and yamming them with, you know, not a knife and fork in sight, right? So he's settling in very well. Jack has become, you know, he comes from a family of entrepreneurs, right? You know, he often doesn't explain that, but they're all entrepreneurs in a very large family, obviously.
What are they doing?
You know,
Let's talk about your family.
well, I mean, there's you know, the entrepreneur that the world knows about, but
Who?
Yeah, Richard Branson,
Okay.
which is wonderful to be related to.
Who's your uncle?
He is my uncle. Yeah. He's definitely added a spice to life, and he's like the cherry on top of this wonderful life that we have.
and a big advocate for our space.
Yeah.
Huge advocate. He founded the Global Drugs Commission Board with many ex-world leaders around the world to really champion ending the war on drugs, right? So really that support is incredible.
Yeah.
But everyone in the family is an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
His mother is an entrepreneur.
And your mother's an artist, I understand.
Yeah. So most of the artwork that you see within the brand, or the sort of detailed line drawings and the
All original.
the watercolors, the paintings she did, of photographs I took of plants we grew.
Let's talk about the brand. You know, from what I understand, you're effectively trying to make Jacana Jamaica's brand of cannabis. And you're off to a fiery start, I see. So where are we going with the brand?
For me, the core of the brand when we originally started it was trust, right? We had to have a brand that, because we're coming out of prohibition, the brands that have been out there have been, well, they're basically not necessarily brands, right? They're just from your local drug dealer who might know where they were grown or who the grower was, but there's just a chain of nothingness.
Jack,
right?
when you talk about prohibition, just so I understand, you know, what has that looked like here in Jamaica? You know, when did the laws change? When did actually this become legal?
It's a great question.
2015.
So 2015, everyone thinks that ganja, cannabis, was legal in Jamaica forever, right?
I never knew it was
not,
prohibited.
yeah.
I didn't
Which is the same for Holland, right?
Yeah.
You know, the same thing, everyone thinks that, you know, you go to Amsterdam, it's totally legal, and technically it's not. There's deep stigma in certain upper echelon parts of the Jamaican society, right? Because of the drug trade and, you know, big war on drugs in the 80s. And then, of course, you have the Rastafarian community who, for them, ganja is a spiritual sacrament, right? It's a very important part of their way of life and their religion. And then for many other Jamaicans, you know, ganja is medicine. It's a very emotional topic within our Out of Many One People, which is our national motto. You have so many different sets of our culture that for them, what ganja means is something very different.
Got it.
The current leader of the opposition, Mark Golding, of the People's National Party, he legalized as Minister of Justice. Well, he decriminalized, and he created a medicinal framework for Jamaica. So Jamaica is medical cannabis, not adult use. It's not recreational, illegal yet. Certainly that's the direction that we very much see the world going into, and obviously much of the United States, I think 21 states now. But then they created a body called the Cannabis and Licensing Authority, which is the regulatory body, and they issue licenses, and then they regulate us as an industry. And both industry, regulator, and companies were all birthed at the same time. So because we're a trusted entity, we do things at an international level. Our goals are to be an international brand born from Jamaica. We've gained a lot of trust, right? To be able to innovate and work as a pilot on many different initiatives together with the regulator. We want to ultimately, long term, be a place where, when you see our processing facility and inspection facility, almost like a mother farm concept, right? Where we are engaging farmers across the island with the genetics, with the SOPs on how to cultivate based on all of our research and development, and buy from them, right? And we see that as a long-term opportunity that we really want to be exploring.
But more than an opportunity, it's almost like it's something that's compulsory for us to do, right? Okay. If you think about over the last 100 years, whilst cannabis has been illegal, Jamaican farmers and Jamaicans in general have been building this incredible brand, right, of Jamaican weed. And it would be so wrong for any successful company here to not include them, right? It's our duty to make sure that we bring as many people in Jamaica along on this ride.
And it's part of authenticity. You know, Paul, for me, what was immediate, right, was the building blocks were authentically there. You know, the world has this very strong global consumer association with cannabis in Jamaica, right? This is, the, you know, it's like, you know, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You know, it's like these two go together.
You know what I find particularly interesting about this Jacana case study is when you juxtapose cannabis versus other industries. So I live in Puerto Rico, and we have the Bacardi factory that's been around for a century, right? A lot of countries will take a product, brand that, you know, Puerto Rican rum, but it's branded for export. Puerto Ricans don't drink Bacardi. They drink Verbell, and there's a lot of other local brands that they drink, but Bacardi is largely for export. Whereas here I get the impression, well, I guess due to the, you know, the regulatory framework, Jacana's first for Jamaicans, right? I mean, it seems like this is what you guys are doing with the dispensaries, with the local involvement. This is, you're making this a Jamaican brand for Jamaicans.
Yes, as a starting point, absolutely. And I think that's authentic, right? How can you be a Jamaican cannabis brand, the Jamaican cannabis brand, if Jamaica doesn't believe you are, right? That's not authentic.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So in the pandemic, we realized, well, not all the Jamaicans can afford this, right? So what are you going to do? And so we created Originals with Jesse, right? We brought Jesse on, Jesse Royal, you know, Grammy nominated, incredible Rastafarian singer, you know, roots, you know, Jack obviously akins him to Bob Marley because he's got so much thought and spirituality and wisdom.
I don't know any other genre that has as many songs dedicated to the decriminalization and legalization of marijuana. Tell me, there's no other genre, there's no other place in the world who did advocate for herb like Jamaica. The music is just a manifestation of the life. Streets watching people keep eavesdropping, see tapping but not telling the beast nothing. Our relationship with herb is not how high can you get. Our relationship with herb is not how much money can you make. Our relationship with herb is honoring this sacred plant and preserving what makes it special. Them ya style ya, them no need no pen. Ain't nothing like your narcos. I was introduced to Alexandra. The first conversation that we had, the passion that we share for her was enough for us to literally build a meaningful relationship after that very day. We created something called the Originals that will literally curate for the average man in Jamaica.
But we wanted Originals to be a line of cannabis flower that is affordable, that we can be growing consistently, less strains.
Still organic,
still natural, and legal. So that Jamaicans can still walk into a dispensary and there's something for them as well.
But here in Jamaica, when you think about, you know, the products that contain THC versus just maybe CBD only, where's the growth here in Jamaica? Is it both?
So it's definitely both. There's still growth opportunity for us. We haven't fully tapped into the North Coast market. We're in conversations with, you know, some of the larger hotel chains on the island to bring a dispensary in, because really that's where we're going, right? Like, where are we going from the future? We're going to a world where cannabis is going to be, you know, sold in spas, just like, you know, cannabis and hemp sold in spas, just like any other, you know, wellness product. The one hindrance to our growth is regulatory, like how we're allowed to move as quickly into that. And frankly, CBD wellness, we're ready for growth. We're going to the US. In 3 days, we launch online e-commerce, Jacana Wellness, right? With an incredible line that has just killed it in all the spas here on the island. And the product pipeline opportunities are endless. And that part of our industry is unregulated. So there's huge opportunity for growth there. So really the sky is the limit. We're really excited about getting into that marketplace. But then one thing I'd be remiss if I didn't mention is that because we're in a country that is federally legal, unlike the United States, we can move cannabis across borders, right, to other federally legal jurisdictions.
Okay.
Like the big one that has really been pioneering in Europe and going adult use, which is Germany.
Yep.
And that is really exciting. We signed a distribution agreement with a German company. The founder who I met, he was the first to import from Canada. And I said, you are going to import Jamaican cannabis from me one day in the future. We're expecting a domino effect to happen in Europe. There's no doubt that cannabis is going to be $1 trillion business in the next 2 years, right? Globally, like the value of the business. Growth is exciting. Like it's really, you know, Paul, having this conversation with you here today is really wonderful because we've kind of gotten through some incredible highs and lows, and it's nice to see us at a stable place that we're really proud of.
Yeah, and it's an exciting time.
You know, from a personal perspective, I've never been a pot smoker per se. And, you know, there's all this stigma on the industry, which is, you know, it's for hippies and so on and so forth. But, you know, something very personal occurred in my life a few years ago. I moved my mother to Puerto Rico literally a week after all the lockdowns took place during COVID. Oh, wow. And she was unfortunately diagnosed with a extremely rare and very painful form of cancer, which she ultimately died from. But she was on a lot of opiates, and it caused tremendous digestional tract problems. I was able to get edible products to my mother, and that was it. And she ate those things until she died. We got her off of opiates. She was able to go to the bathroom. It was just it dramatically changed the last few months of her life.
Quality of her life.
Good. And so I just think there's a lot of people, you know, my father, unfortunately, he passed away years before that, but he would never try that because that was for hippies. Like, I'm not going to do drugs. Like, what? Well, wait a second. You're on Percocets and all these other, you're on
a lot of drugs.
You're on a lot of drugs. But to be able to see, you know, the beneficial effects of that, I got to witness it
firsthand
in my own home.
Yeah.
You know, I know here in Jamaica, it's a healing herb. It's part of the culture in a lot of ways. But when we talk about medicinal properties for everyone around the world who might not be so interested in the healing herb of the Rasta man, but is interested in the healing aspects of marijuana.
Of course, the medicinal properties.
Let's talk about that.
So sorry for the loss of your mama.
Yeah, man, that's terrible.
We're all going there, unfortunately, one day. At least she was able to go out in style.
Yeah, and go out, exactly. Lucid and still living and functioning and less pain, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's frustrating hearing that story, because you hear that story so often where people's lives, particularly at the end of their lives, could have been made so much better through the use of cannabis as a medicine.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, my granddad, for instance, 10 years, he could have really benefited from it. And it's sad. It makes me angry because, you know, the story about why it was made illegal 100 years ago is all about racism. From this horrible politician, Henry Ainsinger, and made this feature film called Reefer Madness.
Hopeless insanity.
A 16-year-old lad apprehended in the act of staging a holdup. 16 years old and a marijuana addict. Here is a most tragic case.
Yes, I remember. Just a young boy. Under the influence of the drug, he killed his entire family with an axe.
Then there is the most vicious...
But then the full extreme of that, you know, which has really been the catalyst for the end of prohibition, is watching cannabis refugee families that would move to Colorado and move to places where they could get this medicine for their children, typically very young children with very, very aggressive forms of epilepsy.
Yeah.
Right? So you might have seen the Charlotte's Web story. Sanjay Gupta from CNN, you know, did a huge piece on that. And that's, you know, that was That's heartbreaking to watch that, right? If there's no medicine that can help your child from stopping from having hundreds of seizures a day and basically becoming incapacitated as a result of these seizures, and you realize that this plant can give them relief and stop those seizures down to 1 or 2, like, of course you're going to move. It's a human right. You know, that was something that in 2018, working with Virgin Unite, you know, and it was really amazing. And also a few other companies, we created the Global Medical Cannabis Summit to bring patients and advocates and regulators together so that they could say, this is about human rights as well, right? Like, you have a human right to have access to this plant that has been put here on this earth to give medicinal value. So, you know, this is so much more than, for me, also just about Jamaica and building a brand. This is a business with a real mission as well that is so rewarding. And you talk to so many entrepreneurs, and you're an entrepreneur, and you understand, like, you need that at the center to get through the difficult times.
Yes.
After the interview, we sat down to a delicious Jamaican lunch. It was then that Alex decided to take us on an in-depth tour of the farm.
Kwame, when did you start here at Jacana?
I started here part-time in June 2018, full-time November 2018. So I've been here almost 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I understand you're an important guy around campus. So what do you do here?
I wear lots of hats.
Yes.
And I've worn lots of hats since the beginning. I started here in more of a projects role. So everything you're seeing here, nothing existed when we got here. So everything from pouring the concrete to this beautiful building you see here was built on my watch.
What was your background before that, Kwame?
Studied mechanical engineering at MIT, and I spent the better part of a decade in the renewable energy industry, primarily solar PV. So that's my background before here. No cannabis before Jacana.
Yeah.
Well, like, except
on a personal level, obviously, of course, and then also my father, who's a medical doctor, but believes very much in holistic medicine.
I see.
So he is maybe the 3rd doctor or so in Jamaica to get licensed to prescribe cannabis here. So he's been an ardent supporter of this whole movement. He's attended Ganja Growers Association's meetings. So it's always kind of been in my family, so to speak. Yeah. And
That's
so
good.
this is kind of a natural progression. For
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, where should we start out here?
Well, we're going to start the journey, the way the plant starts the journey.
Okay.
The clone room. We're going to see how the plant's life begins. So there is one part in this entire phase where we do grow from seed, and it's called a phenohunt, and that's when we're actually looking for the phenotypes or the physical characteristics that we really want expressed in a particular genetic.
Okay.
Once we've identified that, that particular phenotype becomes what we call a mom or a mother plant, and that's what we clone off of. So we have these moms that we take clones or cuttings off of, and each of these cuttings is genetically identical to its mother plant. So Jacana's mother plants are its intellectual property. This is what we've worked so hard to do. It's all in the genetics. So what you're seeing here, these are, we call them babies or clones or, cuttings, and they will sit in these rooting plugs. Now, we are an organic farm here. So part of this process is that we dip these in an organic mixture. So when we go on another part of the tour, you'll see some aloe vera plants outside. Those aloe vera plants are a root stimulant. So we dip it in a mixture of aloe vera, a rooting hormone, and it stimulates root growth. And they stay in these plugs and these trays and this temperature controlled environment for about 2 weeks. And then the plants go into their pre-vegetative state outside. So after the plants come out of the clone room, they go into what's called a pre-vegetative area. Okay. So they're completely outside, exposed. We plant them in a pot and we see who survives. Now, as I mentioned before, about 90% of the plants make it. At that point, they're tagged, and they'll spend a total of about 6 weeks in that environment under lights. These aren't grow lights. These are just lights that extend the day so that they don't flower. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, after that period of time, the plants then move in to different areas for flowering. So we're now in one of our greenhouses. This is where we do our Jacana line flower. It's our, top shelf sun-grown flower, and it's flowered on the canopy, which is what you're seeing here.
How long does it take to get to this mature flowering stage?
From cutting a clone, so it's 2 weeks in the clone room, week or two pre-veg, 4 to 6 weeks in veg, and then 8 to 9 weeks here.
And genetics are really important. We bred our own genetics so that are really unique to Jamaica. Some of them are indigenous landrace genetics. They're only found on the island. And we've bred them with other genetics. So it's been really like for the last 5 years, we've kind of have now a genetic bank of say like 40, 50.
Yeah, over 40 genetics.
Over 40 genetics.
Commercially, we're growing about 30 right now, but we have a bank of over 40 that we have grown, have data on.
So we tag all of our plants. So we obviously every genetic is tagged, but also when they actually begin their life cycle all the way to when they get packaged and sent away. So we know exactly from seed all the way through sale. So here you can see a little yellow tag.
I do. I see a barcode on it.
Exactly with a barcode. When you buy your first Jamaican Jacana spliff this afternoon at the dispensary, you'll be able to know exactly the life cycle of that spliff.
This is where we dry the plants. So after we harvest them and they get inspected, they're whole hung in here where they'll spend anywhere from 5 to 7 days like this.
Okay.
Every single day, someone's coming in, they're checking the environmentals of the room, temperature, relative humidity, and they're also checking, most importantly, the moisture content of the plant. So we're targeting a moisture content anywhere from say 10 to 12%. Once it hits that target moisture content, it's perfect and ripe to come down.
It feels cold and dry in here. What's the
Set
temperature?
points?
Yeah.
Anywhere from 19 to 22 degrees C and 55 to 65% relative humidity. It's
perfect sleeping temperature.
yes,
Right?
it's cooler and dry at the beginning, so we dry it more aggressively the first couple of days, and then it's more gentle towards the end. EU GMP stands for European Union Good Manufacturing Practices, and it is the highest grade of quality management system that you can manufacture medicine to. So this is a pharmaceutical grade factory. And as part of that quality management system, we're keeping track of 3 things primarily. So that's people, hence why we're all ground up. Product, and those green arrows on the ground denote product and where they go, and also waste.
This building is probably one of like 25 in the world that exists for cannabis production.
Yeah.
So it means we can actually produce a finished cannabis medicine to be sold in the European Union, which is the highest standard in the world, which means we can sell it anywhere if it comes out of this building.
So I notice you bring plants in here to go through the drying process. What else are you doing in this particular facility?
Yeah, we're going to go.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
So that's the next stop. Okay. So everything that happens post-drying, extraction, and all the finished products, we're going to see that in the subsequent rooms that we'll tour.
So here we are doing the manicure process of the cannabis after it has been harvested and dried and cured. So here, as you see, the ladies are removing any loose leaves, anything that is not smokable. After this process, and it is placed in these, is where now it goes through a grading process. And here we grade based on bud size, structure. So I would grade into 2 categories. A buds, which are bigger in size, more uniform in shape, and we also have B buds, which are much smaller.
I see.
A lot of the standards that are being used currently are developed by us.
Yeah.
By him?
Yeah, so to be part of it, it was a no-brainer for me. Was a no-brainer, and I love it each day, every day. New challenges, but new wins as well, you know? So, yeah.
Making history.
Yep, cool. Definitely.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, man, you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right,
guys.
ladies, tell him bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
This is 100% full spectrum cannabis oil. This is essentially a plant in a bottle. And in the next room over, we'll explain to you how this is made.
So Nick, what happens here? We've got a bunch of flour all ground up. Is that what this is?
Yeah, so I think you just came from milling. And that's what happens is the flour comes here, previously milled up. And then it's gonna get stuffed in our column here that, as you can see, this is my right hand. This is Elaine, she's our extraction.
Hi, Elaine.
She's filling basically our giant tea bag.
Okay.
It's pretty much with our ground cannabis. And this is our CO2 extractor. And what's gonna happen is we're gonna use carbon dioxide, which is the same gas that we exhale, to extract cannabinoids and other things from the flower. I studied biochemistry and molecular biology at Trent University in Canada, but I am also an artist, and I realize product development is a little bit of both art and science.
So what sort of products are on the drawing board now here?
So you guys walked up on me as I was, just kind of...
Looks like you're eating yogurt. Yeah.
It's not yogurt. I mean, technically probably is edible, but this is our CBD After Sun Lotion. We are working on edible stuff, just, since we brought it up. I'm a big drink guy, and so, one of my biggest kind of pushes is for cannabis beverage. So we're working on, gummies, we're working on this CBD After Sun Lotion, we're working on facial scrubs, but,
He's working
always
on drinks
in the
secretly.
foreground of my mind.
You really want the drinks.
I'm really working on drinks, yeah.
Okay.
All right, guys, I'll see you around.
Thanks,
Sounds
Nick.
good.
It's good.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you all.
It's a pleasure.
Take care.
Awesome.
Thanks.
We're going to go into the lab.
Okay.
Yeah, let's head in. Kevin, this is our chemist, Kevin Chen.
Kevin, Paul. Nice to meet you. Great to meet you as well.
And so this is the Jacana lab. This is, in my opinion, if not one of the most important rooms at Jacana. We want to make sure that any product that leaves Jacana is safe to consume, right? No mold or aflatoxins, bacteria.
So this is all you, Kevin,
or heavy
making sure
metals.
all of this stuff is squared away, no toxins, no mold.
Yep.
He's got a few members of his team that help him, but yes. So
All right.
Kevin can walk you through some of the machinery.
Yeah.
All right. We've upgraded to the HPLC. HPLC stands for High Performance Liquid Chromatography. It takes your sample and it separates it into its individual components so you can measure each one.
Okay.
This is a ground bud, right? And what we do, we use the methanol to kind of extract the cannabinoids out of the plant tissue. Now, the green coloration that you get is also chlorophyll being pulled from the plant tissue, right? Now, from here, we have extracted the cannabinoids from inside the plant to inside this liquid. There's a dilution step that happens, which takes place in this little vial right here. We dilute it times 20 because that instrument is very sensitive. So if we were to load this directly on there, it would overwhelm the detector. So times 20 dilution, and then that diluted sample gets loaded into one of these little vials.
So it's like a crime scene lab.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? And so when it gets loaded into this little vial, there's a needle inside here. We can pull this out. This tray, you'll notice that the positions are numbered.
Yeah.
Right? So we're able to program in the instrument that I put a sample in position D1 and it will guide the needle to position D1, pull up a sample, inject it into the system, and carry out the analysis.
How long does the analysis take?
This specific analysis takes around 14 minutes, but we can make it shorter, we can make it longer, depending on what you're looking for in a method.
I see.
Right. So HPLC methods are highly customizable. So you'll notice it reports the amount in percent weight by weight. So this is 20.6% THCA, 0.157% THC. A plant, for example, will pass through the lab at least twice in its life because we test it pre-harvest, post-harvest,
I see.
post-drying, post-processing, and then out to the customer.
The testing laboratory that you've seen now gives us the ability to really make the user experience much easier and straightforward. What we've done is we categorize it, right? We put into these different categories: joy, peace, passion, which is sativa, indica, and hybrid. So you know roughly the effect that it's going to be giving you. We then also have the potency. So if you see here, we have tall pedestals and shorter pedestals. The shorter pedestals, the lower potency; the higher the pedestal, the higher the potency. So on our display cards here, you've got on one side, you've got the sort of the flavor. So this Venom OG is fuel, earthy, pine. And then on the right-hand side, it gives you an idea of the effect. And then over here, we have our CBD wellness products. We have a CBD oil, which is fly safe. So that's great for travel into Europe, into America, Canada. And then of course, our bestseller, which is the topical balm. So this is our lemongrass. This is actually our best selling CBD product.
Smells like lemongrass.
It is absolutely just amazing.
So we typically grow 4, maximum 6 strains in this set. Herb Stallion, Uptown Cheese, Sky Juice, Apple Louse. And really, this line is accessible to really anyone who, depending on your price point. So what we found actually during the pandemic, when we were focusing mainly on the local demographic, was most Jamaicans didn't realize that they could walk into a Jacana and afford something in here. And we felt like that's not right. You know, like, again, we want to be a brand of the people, a brand of the country. Everyone should be able to have access to the products. And so, again, there's still good quality flowers, lower price point, lower packaging costs, but really good uptake on this product line.
As Alex sees it, if France is known for champagne, Jamaica should be known for ganja. And Jacana is going to market to be the Hermes, the Gucci, dare to say, the Rolls Royce of all things cannabis.